Hello, welcome back to Biology Day 79. We can continue on here. So almost ready to turn on our warm-ups. That'll be on day 80. So we're just going to move past, get the warm-up questions related to digestive system. So we'll move on to the new stuff. So positive moment, class prayer, moment of silence. Go ahead and pause the video if you want to reflect on one or more of those. And then back with the warm-up questions. Again, you can pause the video or look at the slideshow to answer those questions there. Okay, and moving on. So homework that we've got due homework is the digestive and excretory system worksheet and the quiz on the digestive and excretory systems. Keep the tutoring coming in. I'm getting some more of those coming in. I'm answering as best I can. The new stuff, we're looking at the endocrine system and reproductive systems today. So there's a quiz on both of those. Just kind of quick reminder here, I've had a lot of people um, ask me kind of where to get the worksheets. So you can print them out or get digital copies and fill them out online. So they're in the modules on the page there, so you can look at those. Okay, so our objectives for the day. So we'll talk about the endocrine system. It's made up of glands that release hormones into the blood, and these hormones deliver messages throughout the body. The reproductive system functions in males to produce and deliver sperm, and in females to produce egg cells and prepare the body to nourish an embryo. And then during fertilization, sperm and egg fuse to produce something called a zygote. So our key terms from today are homeostasis, hormones, endocrine versus exocrine, pituitary gland, adrenal gland, thyroid gland, gonads, and then know the male and female reproductive organs, and fertilization. All right, so we'll start with the endocrine system. So if we think of the nervous system as kind of a fast way to carry messages from one part of the body to another part of our body, the endocrine system is kind of the slow and sustained way. So it gets a message out to kind of all of our body all at the same time, and it does so through our bloodstream, and it can be sustained because the messages from the hormone system can float around in the blood for a while there. It's not like the nervous system where it's just a fast impulse that's kind of there and done. The endocrine system releases these hormones that can stick around for a bit and last for a long time. So we kind of think about it, right? If you've got to get a message to like one friend, like you might like talk to them or like give them a call or something like that. You've got to get to messages of two friends at the same time. You might be like, hey, let's both meet up, or send a group text or something like that. Um, and like if you need to get a message to like all of your friends at the same time, then this is where like social media might be a kind of good thing. So nervous system is kind of more like these first two. It's kind of very specific, a message from one group of things to another group of things. Whereas the endocrine system is kind of more like the second group, which is kind of getting out to everybody all at once. And some people may respond and some people may not. So, all right. So cells send messages too. Yeah. All right. So there's a little video that I highly recommend that you watch to start understanding the endocrine system. So it's on here. It's kind of a little paper cutout video. It looks it's pretty fun to watch. But the key things we want to pay attention to are homeostasis, endocrine system, hormones, receptors, target cells, and something called negative feedback. So you want to pause my video and then jump onto the other video and watch it there, you can do that. But definitely a very good kind of key point on there. Okay. If you want to watch on your own time, kind of the crash course ones, it's a little bit longer. It's about 12 minutes long. It's also got more good stuff. I think does good videos over there. So, all right. So focusing on just kind of what's going on with the endocrine system, right? So our body is always in flux. We're trying to maintain homeostasis. What is homeostasis? It's the ability of the body to maintain a constant internal environment. So we want to keep our body temperature the same. We want our water balance the same. We want our blood pH levels to stay the same. So we've got all these things that we need to kind of maintain to allow us to function as best that we can. So the endocrine system is a system of glands that produce hormones to regulate and control these bodily systems. And once homeostasis is achieved, quite frequently the glands decrease the secretion of hormones, and this is what we call negative feedback. So in the video that we just mentioned, the slide previous, that does that really well. So on this bottom left example, right, we've got some sort of variable, and here's our sensor over here. So we can see in this particular case, the sensor, like if we're measuring body temperature, if the temperature gets too low or if the temperature gets too high, right, it's going to send a signal to our controller. Our controller goes, oh, something's happening, and then it sends a message out to our effector. So for example, if our temperature gets too low, like we may shiver, and that's going to warm our body up. If our temperature gets too high, we may sweat, right? And that's going to cool us down. It brings those back down. Same thing happens in our body with some other systems. So this is just looking at one particular case. So we're measuring blood sugar in this particular case. So if blood sugar gets too high, right, our controller sends out insulin, which helps break down that blood sugar. And you can see kind of that variable on there changing. It negates that as kind of the big idea that we're looking at. Okay. So moving on, what are the components of the endocrine system? So hormones, again, are the chemical messengers, and the glands, the things that make and release those hormones. So on your own paper, think of an analogy to write for each of these, and go ahead and write those down there. All right. So kind of visually, if we look at this, kind of one, we've got our hormones released in one part of the body. They're secreted by cells. They travel through the blood, going wherever they're going. And then 3, they affect only particular cells. So only cells that have a receptor, we call those target cells, will get that message. So if you don't have the right receptor, the message is meaningless and it doesn't affect that cell at all. So in this way, we can have cells that secrete and say, okay, we want our muscle cells to do something, or we want our bone building cells to do something. And that's going to affect just those particular regions that we want to be affected. Okay, so here's an image looking at glands. So when we look at different types of glands, there's generally 2 categories of glands, those that we call exocrine glands and those that we call endocrine glands. So exo are the things that release hormones out of the body, typically onto our skin or into our digestive system. So sweat, tears, digestive enzymes. Endocrine glands are things that release hormones directly into the blood, so they go into the body. And on this image down here, it's showing you several of these endocrine glands. So we're just going to focus on 4 of them: pituitary glands, thyroid glands, adrenal glands, and reproductive glands. But you can see that there's a good number of them on there. We're just going to pick those 4 to kind of focus on. So the pituitary gland is a bean-sized structure located at the base of the brain. So here's a person's face with their eyes, right? And here's kind of your brain. And then down the very bottom of it, there's this little hypothalamus and then pituitary. So the hypothalamus is kind of this region right here, and the pituitary is this part here. Pituitary. And this regulates many body functions and controls the actions of other endocrine glands. The pituitary is sometimes kind of called the master control of the endocrine system. Not entirely true, because it is partially influenced by the hypothalamus, among other things, but it does play a major regulatory role in how things work. Now, one of the interesting things we can look at is, well, what happens when the pituitary gland kind of goes a little screwy? So in our picture here, we've got what we call pituitary dwarfism and pituitary gigantism. And this is, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but He Ping and Sultan Kosen. So they are adult humans, and they just kind of show you these extreme ranges in size: 2 foot 5 inches up to 8 foot 3 inches. And this is the results from the human pituitary producing human growth hormone, either too little in this case, or too much in this case, can result in these extreme height differences that can happen as a result. So, all right, adrenal glands located at the top of your kidneys. So your kidneys are kind of in the back side of your abdominal cavity, and they are kind of kidney bean shape. So they kind of curve on the outside and curve on the inside. But then sitting on top of them, we have these regions that we call the adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands release hormones that help the body prepare for and deal with stress specifically. The major hormone that's released is called adrenaline, or in some cases it's called epinephrine, but it's the same chemical. Adrenaline or epinephrine is the same thing. Next one is the thyroid gland. So that's located in your throat. It's kind of this butterfly shaped gland here, and it wraps around your trachea. And you can feel it just down below from your Adam's apple. If you kind of reach into it, there's a little bit of a kind of soft, squishy part of it. Don't squeeze too hard, but that's your thyroid gland there. Yeah, so base of neck wraps around the trachea. It causes cells to become more active, use more energy, produce more heat. This increases body metabolism. So there's 2 things that we can have. We can have an underproduction of thyroid hormones. This is called hypothyroidism, or we can have an overproduction of thyroid hormones, and that's called hyperthyroidism. And so if we look at those 2, so here's just kind of some symptoms of hypothyroidism. So that's lower production, so tiredness, stamina, weight gain, hair loss, and so on. Hyperthyroidism, protrusion of eyeballs, also hair loss, nervousness, trembling hands, high blood pressure, and so on. So you can see kind of these major differences in hypo and hyperthyroidism that can occur there. So, okay. Next one is the reproductive glands. So these are also known as gonads. So the ovaries in female bodies and the testes in male bodies. They're the human reproductive glands there. And they release two hormones. Many people have heard of these before. So estrogen is a major one that's released from the ovaries, and testosterone is a major one that's released from the testes. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about them and their role in the reproductive system in just a little bit. So we'll pause there, and that's the end of part 1. All right, thank you. Here's our stretch break. There we go. All right, take a stretch or go for a walk. All right.